In today's episode, we discuss the best tips, tricks, and options for dining at Disney with dietary needs.
I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse.
You are listening to the Main Street Magic Podcast with your hosts, Jeremy Stein and John Marone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Main Street Magic. I am your host, Jeremy Stein, and I am back with another guest, an old high school friend of mine, Casey Philbrick. Welcome to the show, Casey.
Thanks, Jeremy. Excited to be here.
So in today's episode, we're going to discuss the best tips, tricks, and options for dining at Disney when you or a family member has specific dietary needs. As always, please check us out on the web at mainstmagic.com, as well as like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at mainstmagic. So Casey and I actually recently connected here through Facebook and through some other friends from high school, and I found out that you were running a blog, kind of a travel blog, called Hunting for Rubies. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I started hunting for rubies when my kids were 2 and 3, and we were doing a lot of traveling, and I was always seeing moms specifically and parents asking for trips on going on road trips and going to Disney, and we are annual pass holders. So I started kind of, instead of answering on Facebook, consolidating all my experience with traveling with young kids on my blog, Hunting for Rubies, which is named after my 2 children, Hunter and Ruby.
That's great. So you, and on there, I know as I was looking through things, so, you know, obviously you mentioned Disney, and we're going to talk specifically about Disney today, but unlike us, who we're just pretty much a straight up Disney family, I know you have been to pretty much every park in Florida and throughout the United States. Have you done a lot of other parks? What is some of the travel that you guys were doing?
So my in-laws live in New Hampshire. Jeremy and I both are from Maryland, so my parents are still there. And then we live in Florida. And as much as I like, flying with 2 kids, now we have 3, it can get expensive. And I love taking all our gear with us and just not having to be restricted to, what fits in an airplane, in a suitcase.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of road trips, and, you can go straight up 95 or you can make stops on the way. So we always try to find some really quirky stops on that destination. And, now we're looking at going elsewhere out west and stuff, and then eventually internationally. But since we live in Florida, part of when I had Logan, our youngest, and he'll be 2 in February, we really started exploring Florida, which was great. It's not just Orlando and South Florida.
Yeah.
There's a lot to visit here. So we started going to Legoland and Busch Gardens. We've been to Universal now because my daughter and I both love Harry Potter so much. Of course, we've been to all the Walt Disney World parks. And then I lived in California for 4 years, so I've been to Disneyland as well. And eventually, our family goal is to go to all the Disney parks around the world, which I think sounds super awesome.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Yeah, our current bucket list includes just getting out to Disneyland because we have not done that. So we're hoping to do that here, obviously in the near future. So speaking of Disney, so you guys went on a recent trip with some extended family. Do you want to talk a little bit about your trip there, who went, where you stayed, and how long you were at Disney for?
Sure. So my mom and my sister came. Now, my mom's a snowbird, which means you live up north and you fly down south for the winter. And so she was here, and it was her birthday in November. And my niece and sister were able to come down for November as well for Thanksgiving. So we did. It was our first time being at Disney during the holiday season.
Yeah.
Not meaning like early November, meaning Thanksgiving week.
Yeah.
So we were there the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, and we stayed at Art of Animation in the Cars family suite, which we love so much. And my husband stayed at home, but it was myself, my 3 kids, my niece Maya, who's 8, and then my mom and my sister. So we fit everybody really comfortably in that family suite, and then we went to Magic Kingdom the first day, Epcot the second day, and we went to Animal Kingdom the third day. We left that same day, but we got to experience Pandora, which was a first for us, and we were really excited about it.
Yeah, outstanding, isn't it?
It's really, really awesome.
So the main focus of today's show will be, dining at Disney when you or a family member has dietary needs. And I know that you have a family member with some specific dietary needs and allergies. And so that's what we really want to get into and the experiences you had there. So hopefully we can leave people some information, when they go to visit Disney, if they have food allergies or certain things they have to do with their diet. And maybe it's not even something they have to do or that they're allergic to, but just in general, eating healthier or having options at Disney as opposed to just having to look at a menu and stick with exactly what's on there. Do you want to talk a little bit and share about the, some of the allergies that you're up against when you go out to travel somewhere like Disney?
Absolutely. So in the summertime, we were on a road trip up to New Hampshire and back. And when I was coming back, I thought to myself, I really need to get Logan, our baby, tested for food allergies. And the reason why I knew was because we have a neighbor with severe food allergies. Mm-hmm. And so, unfortunately, before we had the testing done, he ended up having a full-blown allergic reaction to nuts. So when we had the testing done, we found out that he was allergic to eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, and coconut. So It's not a huge list, but it's a pretty decent list. Yeah. And something that's in a lot of things. So there's a few when it comes to travel, and when you become a food allergy family, preparation is absolutely the key. So the first thing I'm going to say is always bring your EpiPens with you everywhere. So we had to learn how to use the EpiPens, have two with us, have special cases, because when you come to Florida, it's so hot and they need to stay in a certain temperature. So we have insulated cases we bring. But then the next step is doing preparations for dining. And when you stay in a hotel, you don't have the luxury necessarily of cooking at home and bringing things into the park. You can bring some stuff, but it's not super realistic to bring, a full-blown meal. Right. So Disney is the absolute 100% best place to go if you have food allergy, because they are so inclusive. And we were really excited to kind of test this out and see exactly where they, excelled and where maybe they could use improvements or just be a little more informative. And they just blew us away. So we can kind of go through the whole trip and how that experience felt for us. But, as a food allergy mom, anxiety and is always kind of there, and every meal you have. And I have to say, I really got a chance to relax at Disney.
Yeah, that's great. And that's so good to hear. Because we've seen, plenty of times, and we don't have any specific allergies in our family, but even down to just things that we like or don't like, and Disney has always been so accommodating with everything. So I'm very interested to hear about how they accommodate when it comes to allergies. Run us through some of your trip and some of the places that you went and the preparation you did, because I know, we make a lot of dining reservations for our trips, and there's always that box at the bottom that basically asks, do you have any specific needs? Did you guys do some advanced dining reservations, and do you fill out that box? What do you do in preparation before going maybe to like a table service or a quick service restaurant?
So this time around, since we were going with extended family, my mom bought a package, and so we were on the dining plan.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm going to speak specifically, and the way that I know this sounds super weird, and again, maybe it's because we've been annual pass holders for so long, and we like to check off the food bucket list of eating everywhere around Disney. I actually plan my days around my dining reservations, and like which park I go to is kind of based on like where I can get into and stuff.
Oh, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's where I start when I'm planning Disney, where we're going to eat that day, and then kind of do fast passes from there. Since it was Thanksgiving week, our options were limited, but we scored a few good table service dining, and so our first place was Crystal Palace. And on the day we went to Magic Kingdom. And it's exactly, I used my Disney Experience app. I did all my reservations through that, which is nice because I wasn't necessarily on the phone kind of having to make a last minute decision and talking it over with my husband, with my family separately. Yeah. I did it on the My Disney Experience app, and I exactly did that. My son has peanut, tree nut, coconut, egg allergies at that little box, and then went from there. And so on the day that we went to the Magic Kingdom, I went to check in, and that was the first thing the person asked me, the cast member asked me, was, do you have any food allergies? So I noted that, and she had it already in the computer system, but it's worth making the note again, just in case something, happens. And we went from there. And so when we sat down, we were presented with the server who ran us through things. Now, I thought our server, and again, this is a gut feeling, was super informative. He really let me know. And let me preface with saying my son doesn't have a contact reactive food allergy, meaning that if he comes in contact with a nut on his skin, he's not going to break out. Okay. It's more ingested. So there is, food allergies are unpredictable. And so, but some people can react from the air. So buffets tend to be something that people with food allergies want to stay away from because there can be a lot of cross-contamination with the spoons.
Oh, yeah.
So making those dining reservations, you may want to note. But Disney, again, is so good that a chef, even if you choose a buffet, a chef will come out and make you your own safe meal.
Wow.
So for me, I felt secure with what they had on the buffet, that I could feed my son some rice and fruit and some rice and fruit and some chicken and be good. And then where I felt especially great about it was that he was able to eat ice cream, which is something that food allergy kids tend to stay away from because, so he had he had a vanilla ice cream when we were celebrating my mom and niece's birthday with a cupcake. He got to have ice cream, which was great. And then the server noted, oh, well, there's safe cookies. And I thought to myself, no, cookies have eggs in them. Like, there's no way he can have these safe cookies. Thank you, though. And then he came out at the very end and he had Enjoy Life prepackaged cookies. And Enjoy Life is my absolute favorite brand for the top 8 allergies. And they have them all over Disney World.
Wow.
So they're 3 of the top 8 allergens. And he gave me a few to go, and I had them in my purse so that they could be snacks later on or at other meals. So it was a really great experience, besides the fact that my son hates characters.
Yeah. Well, that's too funny.
That was a total bummer.
So he hates them because he's scared of them?
He's scared of them, and he's the child who's a little bit different than the other ones. The other kids were great on road trips and they could go all the way through the night. My son wants to be in bed at 8:00.
Yeah.
And then my other kids have been going to Disney since they were 6 months old and love Mickey and Minnie and would fawn over them. And this kid's like, get Piglet out of my face now, like holding on to me for dear life. So
that's too funny.
It's an interesting experience, but yeah, so that was a really great first step. But I will say, they definitely asked me if I wanted to speak with a chef. So feel free to go that extra step and have them take you around the buffet if you feel like you need to. It's all about your comfort level.
Yeah. Well, and that's so great to hear. And I know, if somebody was looking even at, vegetarian type options, or that was something they needed, they're going to be, they're going to work with you. And of course, all the menus are going to be marked, with certain notations anyway about things that may be, vegetarian or gluten free. But it's so good to hear that, the actual chef will come out and walk you through, especially at a buffet. That's one of the questions I was going to ask you, is how buffets work, because there can be so much cross-contamination and, again, things in the air. So that's really great to hear. So at some of the other parks, what were some of the other restaurants that you visited, and did you have similar experiences?
So I'll go back actually to our hotel, and then and just kind of note as well, we stayed at Art of Animation, and when you eat in the cafeteria, there's a few options for
that's
food.
My absolute favorite quick service at any hotel throughout all of Disney. I love it at Landscapes of Flavor.
And I agree with you.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. That's why I like staying there. One of the reasons. So this was an interesting experience because my son is allergic to eggs, and there's French toast and lots of egg options. So I didn't really know what to feed him. And so I went up and I asked one of the cast members if they had an allergy menu, and they gave me a laminated allergy menu. And that was my first experience at non-table service, because we went straight to Crystal Palace upon arrival.
Yeah.
So this was the next morning, and they had a laminated menu, and it had every allergy or the top 8 allergens that consist in each option. And there wasn't much that I could choose from because of the egg allergy. And so I kind of said to them, they said a chef will come out to you, and the chef came out. It took a little bit longer because it was breakfast and it was busy. Yeah. So I recommend if you can go on maybe the very beginning or maybe a little bit later, you might not wait as long. But he made us our own special pancakes that didn't have eggs. And so we got our own meal that was safe for my son. And I will have to say the pancakes weren't my favorite thing I've ever had.
Yeah.
But it is so nice to know that he could have, that there were options for him.
And especially for a kid. Yeah, I mean, for a young kid, I know that's got to be tough, because they're going to want waffles or they're going to want pancakes. It's just something that they want. That's something that kids eat. And so, knowing that there is still an option, and maybe it isn't the greatest tasting thing ever, but I think part of that is probably the joy they get even just saying, all right, I still get to have pancakes. I don't have to just sit here and eat a piece of fruit or something. So that's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And again, it could just be me. I was the one who was kind of eating the pancakes because we were sharing a meal because he's not quite old enough to be on the dining plan yet, or maybe he could have been, but we were sharing a meal. It was plenty of food. And that was me. I mean, I am lucky that I can have a regular pancake still. Yeah. But yeah, it's super accommodating. So that's how we handled the quick service at the hotel. And then the one place, I guess I could go to quick service also at Animal Kingdom because that's what we had for lunch. Mm-hmm. And the quick service in Pandora is super duper outstanding and really, really healthy. Yeah. Think Chipotle with like an Asian twist, lots of brown rice. I had they're bowls. So that's like their primary thing is like you get like a bowl. And so you get to pick your starch, and I had the potato hash, so it's sweet potato and potatoes. And then I had really, really great chicken on top and some like coleslaw, and the chimichurri sauce, and it was super healthy. And my son could not get enough. Like he loved it so much. So it was not only healthy, but it was completely free of all of his allergens. And so that was a really safe place for us. And also a healthy place. And so sometimes when you eat at Disney's, it's all burgers and fries, chicken nuggets, which is great. But after like 4 or 5 days, you're kind of like, that's enough fried food. This was a really light and healthy option. And again, it was the same type of thing. I told the cast member who was checking us out, do you have a food allergy menu? It was the laminated menu. And then we got to choose from there. And so it was just nice to see a visual and me be able to handle that. Yeah. And the extra step was, do you want to talk to a chef? Yeah. And I felt comfortable not doing it, but if you need to talk to a chef, by all means, like, please.
Yeah, so that's actually my favorite, probably in-park quick service now, is at Sato Lee Canteen. We absolutely love it there, and you're right. There's so many options. It's probably one of the healthiest places to eat, and the way you can build your kind of, your bowls, you can have so many different options. So we get something different every time we go. But so the first time we went and ate there was for the pass holder preview back in early May, and so we went and we rode everything, and we went to eat. And they have those pods, and they have one of them is the cheeseburger pod, and I hate mustard. Like I'm not allergic to it, but I absolutely hate it. Like I won't even touch like a mustard bottle, like on the outside. I'm just that weird about it. So we just happened to ask, like, is there mustard in these cheeseburger pods? And the cast member who was ringing us up said they weren't really sure. And my wife, who had maybe had a beer or two already outside, just says he's allergic to mustard. And I almost walk away at this point because I'm like, I'm not allergic, but I just don't like it. So the guy calls back, and the chef comes out with an iPad, and it has a list of every single ingredient within those cheeseburger pods, and he's starting to go through it. And I just stop him, just like, you know what, don't worry about it. Thank you so much. I'm just going to get something else. But still, even then, now she blurted out he's allergic to it just because she knows how much I hate it. But I was just so amazed at the detail they put in, and that somebody would come out and so specifically spend time. And it was busy. This was during a pass holder preview. It was the first time anybody's getting to see this place and eat this food. I was so impressed just by the lengths they would go through just to make sure, I was getting what I wanted or or possibly needed if I had actually been allergic to something in there. So I just thought that was so great. So every experience sounds very good to you. I know we had a little bit of a conversation through email prior to this. I know you did have a few issues at some areas in Epcot. You want to talk about those and what happened there?
Sure. So, we're 6 months into this journey. So I am of food allergies, and I'm still learning so much that there is to learn. And so one of the things is that, Asian food can be really risky if you have a nut or soy allergy. A lot of cross-contamination going on. They tend to use woks, and so they're not necessarily like not that they're not sanitary, but they're not like super duper clean that like your allergen's not present.
Right.
So I was really excited knowing that Disney was so great about allergies to eat Asian food again, because I love it. So we had made dining reservations at Nine Dragons and Epcot. And I didn't realize that the restaurants in Epcot were not Disney park run. They're kind of run by their own individual restaurants.
Yeah.
And so they don't have the same high level. They're still great, and they still provided us with decent information. But there was definitely a level of discomfort I had. A, because we were eating a risky type of food, but B, because all of a sudden I realized there wasn't, the menu with what consists in every dish, and everything was very verbal. There was no offer to speak to a chef.
Yeah.
So my son ended up eating white rice and vegetables, and it was fine. He didn't have any reactions. But again, if you are much more sensitive to your allergen, then you absolutely will probably want to avoid that particular restaurant, but also maybe call in advance and speak to, or go in advance in that day and speak to the different restaurant you're going to choose to eat at, and then how you're going to, and then what they're going to do for your allergen, I guess would be my biggest suggestion.
Yeah.
So I was a little disappointed, but again, it was kind of my own misinformation that or assumption. I guess it was my assumption.
Yeah. Well,
and that's the thing.
That's great information, and especially mentioning, to call ahead and contact the restaurant ahead of time. So you're not getting there 15 minutes before a reservation and spending the first, who knows how much time trying to speak with the chef and trying to get things figured out. I love that tip to go ahead and call ahead. So let's talk about snacks within the park. As far as allergies go, are there a lot of great snacks that you can actually purchase in the parks, or do you find yourself having to mostly pack your own snacks because, again, you're worried about making sure you get allergy-friendly snacks within the parks?
So, I think that in terms, I guess because my son's not even 2 yet, I kind of let the older kids, we always get popcorn. That's like kind of our tradition.
Yeah.
Popcorn's a choking hazard, let alone a allergy hazard.
Oh yeah.
So we're not even there yet, to be honest with you. And I really can't speak super informatively on snacks. But I do know that they do provide those Enjoy Life products in a lot of places. So if you are in need of an allergy sweet, at least for dessert, that should not be a problem. I do imagine like things like the turkey leg being okay. For us, we have egg allergies, but I think that if you go, Disney is so thorough that if you go to any cart, I think that they would be able to provide you with a card that has a list of ingredients. Yeah. So it's just taking that extra step. The other great thing about Disney is you can bring in your own food. So I definitely rely on grabbing some fruit and bananas. Again, my son's he's not aware of all the amazing sweets that exist in Disney World yet. But my mom and I wanted to try, and again, I thought it was sickeningly sweet, but we tried the, I'm not sure the name, you probably know, the like sweet tart frozen drink that's in Pandora.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. Yeah, we have not had it yet, but I've seen it there and seen plenty of people walking around with it.
So it's like a frozen juice drink that's really colorful, and it has boba on top, and it's right next to the cantina, And so we got one and tried, and my son was like, straw juice I want. And so I ran in and asked, and she did give me a binder of all the ingredients, and it was safe. Probably not the healthiest for him, but and I had to like pry his fingers off of it to try to get it away. But it was just like a super sickeningly sweet Slurpee, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the information is there for you to gather. You can bring in your own food. You can make preparations in advance. And I think that that's why Disney is so great, for foods. And then the one other thing I want to say about Disney, being accommodating and inclusive, I think that's what a lot of food allergy kids, specifically a lot of times in schools and stuff, they have to sit at their own tables at lunch and be away from the kids that are going to have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And so in Disney, and especially during the holidays where, you're going to a big family outing and you can't necessarily eat everything that's on the table, you kind of have to have your own separate food that is safe.
Yeah. For
both the Halloween party and the Christmas party. Not so, Mickey's not so scary and very merry. For the Halloween party specifically, what they've done for food allergy kids, and I guess they've been doing it for quite a number of years now. They have you trick or treat just like everybody else, and you get tokens. And then at the end of the a night, you trade in your tokens for, and again, Enjoy Life and other safe food allergy products.
Okay.
And then you get to come home with your own big grab bag of treats and sweets, just like your brothers and sisters. And your friends and family, and you're not excluded. And so you can go safely trick or treat, because I know that was one of the issues we had when we were trick or treating on our actual Halloween in our neighborhood was here, Logan, you can have a Tootsie Roll because that's safe for you.
Yeah.
But everything else, like, let's hide or eat secretly or just throw away. And don't touch it, God forbid. So at Disney, he could go trick or treating and be super duper happy and safe.
That is so great. Yeah, and I didn't know that about the tokens. That's great information. And I know one thing we found surprising when we were there for the Halloween party just back recently here, and this really didn't have to do with allergies, but the amount of chocolate candies they had, which obviously most of those have nuts in them. So, on one side, that isn't, something to do with allergies. I'm a little surprised they have so much of. But also, when we were there that night, it was like 80 degrees. And so we got home to basically just a bag full of melted chocolate, so I was, just kind of, I thought that was interesting, that's what they chose. But I think Mars is now the sponsor of the candy there. So you got a lot of, Snickers and things like that. Well, this has been great information. Are there any other recommendations you have, or any other, anything else you'd like to share? Do you want to tell us a little bit? Because I know we had talked about this before as well, canceling reservations if you have to. Because I actually did not know this when you told me about canceling in person. You want to talk about that?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So I had made all our reservations for, it was Thanksgiving week. I just picked whatever reservations I could get. And then we were leaving. We were leaving on the Tuesday that we were at Animal Kingdom, and my son, my oldest son, got sick, and he was just like not having it. And I knew he was not going to handle sitting at a sit-down restaurant. And we had a reservation for 7 at Tiffin's in Animal Kingdom, and it's a pricey restaurant. I hadn't managed our table service, so we were going to pay our credits well, and so we were going to be paying out of pocket for it. And then it just did not seem like it would be appealing for my son, who was getting a stomach virus. Oh, yeah. So if I had canceled it through the app, it would have been, I believe, $10 a head. Yes. So it would have been out $70 for this reservation. But instead, I went and told the lady my son was getting sick, which he was. And she said, oh, no, that's not a problem at all. And she informed me, the cast member informed me that if you cancel in person, then they'll just make the changes through their iPad right then and there, and you won't be charged. The reservation may still show up in your My Disney Experience app for that day, but all in all, you won't be charged the money. But if you do it over the app or over the phone, you will get charged.
Yeah. Well, and that's great information, and I can only guess. I know lots of times, when people get to their 180 days out from their reservation and they can start booking. Some people will go in and just book anything and everything. And then they'll just figure, once maybe they get there, as long as they're within 24 hours, they can cancel some items and they do everything, through the app. And they're okay, again, if it's over that 24-hour mark. But my guess is Disney is figuring if you're going to cancel through the app last minute, maybe you didn't intend to actually use that reservation anyway. Maybe you had made several reservations and you were just going to figure out where you were. But obviously, if you show up in person, you potentially had the intention of being there at that time for the reservation. Most likely there's a reason you can't make it. So I think it's great that they're not going to charge you that, that $10 ahead. And I think that's very useful information to know in the future, because I wasn't even aware of that. Well, so before we wrap up, though, I do want you to share more about Hunting for Rubies, where people can find your blog, and where can they find you on social media?
Sure. So my blog is www.huntingforrubies.com. And again, I talk about a lot of, I'm starting to talk a lot about food allergies because that's obviously our life now, but specifically traveling with food allergies. Yeah. And then we do a lot of Florida travel, theme park travel, and East Coast travel for the time being. A lot of different travel tips. I just am about to put out a blog post about traveling to Disney with your extended family and tips for how you can kind of make it a peaceful trip, because with all those personalities, it can be a little hectic. Yeah. A little moody. So kind of the things you can do ahead of time to just make sure everyone's on the same page. Yeah. So I'm about to put out that blog post. And then in terms of social media, I am at Hunting for Rubies on Instagram and Facebook, and Hunting Rubies on Twitter and Twitter. Perfect. Twitter and Pinterest. And Pinterest. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited to read that blog because we just booked for spring break of all times with of course our family, my parents, and then my brother and his 3 kids. So I'm sure I will pick up some tips from your blog post, because we're going to be there for 5 days. We're doing the parks for 3 of the days. And again, during spring break, it's Florida spring break and it is up north spring break. So it's going to be very interesting. So I can't wait to read that. So everyone go out, check out Hunting for Rubies. Go ahead and interact on social media with Casey and everything she's doing. Casey, thank you so much for coming on the show. So excited that we got to reconnect, and I look forward to catching up with you more later and continuing to read your blog.
Thank you. Me too. We love you guys.
All right. Well, that's all I got for now, so we'll see you real soon.